They invited him again. That's when I knew my family wasn't just dysfunctional, they were dangerous. For years, I'd carried a secret, a toxic weight from a Thanksgiving night that shattered my soul. I was 23 then, blacked out, vulnerable. My step-uncle, a man my family still adored, saw an opportunity. He used me. And the next morning, he made sure I remembered just enough to twist the knife deeper, telling me things that made my stomach churn, threatening to destroy both our marriages if I ever spoke. Years of therapy taught me it wasn't my fault, it was his and my family's, because they knew they had to know or at least suspected the darkness he carried, yet they kept inviting him back. My name is Alina Vance, I am 35 years old, and I live in Willow Creek, Ohio. But my story begins with a phone call from my grandmother, a week before this year's Thanksgiving. Her voice, usually so sweet, held an edge. He was coming to town, my step-uncle, the predator. My blood ran cold. After all these years, they were still choosing him. I had 2 children now, twin boys, and a loving husband who knew fragments of my past, enough to understand why I couldn't be near that man. So I told my grandmother the obvious: we wouldn't be coming. My family, my babies, would miss the traditional gathering because he was more important. My chest tightened with a familiar rage. But that was just the beginning. My mother, always caught between the family facade and her own maternal instincts, called me back. She couldn't bear to miss seeing her grandkids, so she proposed a compromise, a separate Thanksgiving just for her, my sister, my brother, and her boyfriend at his house, a private dinner, no uncle. I wanted to believe her. I desperately wanted a sliver of normal, a taste of family that didn't involve psychological warfare. I agreed. I spent Thanksgiving Day baking, measuring out my hope into pumpkin and apple pies. My husband wrangled the twins. We were a little late, as usual, a happy chaos that felt miles away from the venom I usually associated with family holidays. We arrived at 5:30. The food was delicious. For a brief, fleeting moment, I almost allowed myself to relax. Decided to play Cards Against Humanity. Our copy was at home. I volunteered to make the quick run. It was just 10 minutes away. My husband offered to come, but I insisted. A breath of fresh air, a moment to myself before the inevitable descent into family awkwardness. I had no idea how quickly that descent would come. I pulled into the driveway, grabbed the game, and my phone buzzed. It was my husband. He sounded confused. My mother, my sister, my brother, and her boyfriend. They had all left. Gone to Grandma's, they'd be back soon, he said. My stomach dropped. Soon stretched into an hour, then another. 2 full hours passed. My husband and I were stranded in the stranger's house with the boyfriend's roommate and another woman we barely knew. My anger simmered, then boiled over. This wasn't a compromise. It was a staging ground, a placeholder for their real Thanksgiving. I packed up my children, their little faces tired and confused. As we got into the car, I texted my mother. We're leaving. The phone buzzed almost instantly, a jumbled mess of words, then a clear line. You're not leaving because we're going to get tore up from the floor up. I froze. My own mother, the woman who raised me, who never swore, never used slang. She sounded like a stranger, a wasted stranger. My hands clenched the steering wheel. A cold dread seeped into my bones. This was not my mother, and I didn't know it yet, but it was already too late. Moments later, their car pulled up, tires crunching on the gravel. My mother stumbled out, swaying slightly. Her eyes were glazed over, but the fury in them was clear. We stood outside in the crisp night air, the laughter from their other Thanksgiving still clinging to them. We're going home, I said, my voice tight. I repeated it 3 times, trying to keep my composure, but she wouldn't let it go. Why? She slurred, pushing for an answer, her voice dripping with false concern. The dam broke, all the years of silent suffering, the gaslighting, the betrayal. It erupted. Because it's complete bullshit, Mom, I screamed, the words tearing from my throat. It's complete bullshit that you left in the middle of our Thanksgiving to go to Grandma's. Why couldn't you have gone earlier in the day? And what in the actual hell is that text about getting tore up from the floor up? I don't drink on Thanksgiving, not since 2012. I can't. The words hung in the air, thick with unspoken trauma. My sister, always quick to defend the family narrative, piped up then. Her voice, saccharine sweet, cut me like glass. But we moved Thanksgiving for you, Alina. My head snapped towards her. That was it, the final, gut-wrenching twist of the knife. You didn't move Thanksgiving for me. I snarled, my voice shaking with pure venom. You moved it because of me, because it's awkward for all of you to face the truth. My sister, the perfect golden child, then dramatically turned to her boyfriend. I'm so sorry you have to witness such a monstrosity as my black sheep sister. She simpered, loud enough for me to hear every word. My vision blurred, a black wave of pure, unadulterated rage washed over me. Monstrosity, black sheep. They saw me as the problem, not the man who hurt me, not the family who enabled him. Me. I got into the car. My husband, bless his silent strength, didn't argue. He just started the engine. As we drove away, leaving them standing in the dim porch light, their drunken laughter already echoing after us, a hollow ache settled deep in my chest. I had ruined everyone's Thanksgiving, that's what they would say, that's what they believed, and a tiny insidious part of me, the part they had cultivated over years of emotional abuse, felt guilty. But beneath the guilt, a new, cold resolve began to harden. I had fled from them for years, I had tried to make peace, I had tried to understand. But tonight they didn't just kick me out, they declared war, and I knew then with chilling certainty that I would no longer be Alina, the traumatized victim. I would be Alina, the strategist. My mind raced, the anger sharpening into focus, fueling a plan that had been simmering unheard for years. They wanted to pretend I was the problem. They wanted to sweep their complicity under the rug, but I had proof. I had the nightmares, I had the therapy, and I had the truth. The truth about my uncle's sick admission, whispered in the cold light of the morning after. The truth about my family's willful ignorance. And now the truth about their contempt. I spent the rest of that night not sleeping but meticulously planning every betrayal, every dismissal, every dismissive glance. It all came flooding back. The shame they had tried to instill in me, I weaponized it. I had a voice now. And I would make sure everyone heard it. My first call was to my therapist early the next morning. Not for comfort, but for strategy. She understood. She knew my story, the years of pain, the fragmented memories, the uncle's chilling confession. She helped me structure it. The next few hours were a blur of cold, calculated action. I didn't just write a Reddit post. I didn't just vent. I compiled a dossier. Every counseling note, every police report I'd ever thought about filing but hadn't. Every single one of my uncle's social media posts where he bragged about his perfect family life. And then the clincher, the text from my mother, tore up from the floor up. Proof of their intoxication, proof of their disregard, proof of their abandonment. I contacted a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but one specializing in trauma and family abuse. I laid it all out, the uncle's assault, his own admission, the family's years of enabling, their recent, blatant dismissal of my trauma for their own drunken revelry. The lawyer saw the strength of my case, but I didn't want money, I wanted justice. Poetic justice, the kind that strips away veneers and exposes the rot beneath. My family valued their perfect image, their social standing in Willow Creek, their comfortable, blissful ignorance. That was their weakness, and I would exploit it. I drafted a letter, a long, detailed, emotionally devastating letter. It wasn't for social media. It was for maximum impact. I listed everything: the date of the assault, the uncle's name, his chilling confession, my family's knowledge, their choice to invite him again. My mother's compromised Thanksgiving, their abandonment, their drunken derision, and I ended it with a single damning question. Is this the family you want to celebrate with? I didn't send it to my immediate family. I sent it to the wider family network, all of my grandmother's siblings, their children, my father's side of the family, every cousin, every aunt, every uncle who had ever sat at that Thanksgiving table. I included screenshots, the text message. A photo of the uncle with a knowing smile from a past Thanksgiving, a carefully chosen paragraph from a counseling session summary that detailed the lasting impact of sexual assault. Then, a second, equally devastating package. This one went to the board of directors of the prestigious company my uncle worked for, a detailed account of his character, his past, and the family's knowledge of it. Not directly accusing him of anything actionable in that specific letter, but planting enough seeds of doubt, enough questions about his integrity, that they couldn't ignore it. I didn't sign the letters. I used a pseudonym, a name that didn't exist, and a burner email. I didn't want the credit, I wanted the chaos. The repercussions were swift. By morning, the phone lines in Willow Creek were buzzing, not with Thanksgiving cheer, but with a cold, horrified whisper. My grandmother's phone rang off the hook. My mother's carefully constructed world of appearances began to crumble. The family group chats exploded, then went eerily silent as the truth, unvarnished and brutal, began to sink in. My aunt, my grandmother's sister, a pillar of the community, was the first to act. She called my mother directly, her voice sharp with disgust. How could you, she demanded. How could you let this happen to Alina, and then abandon her drunk at Thanksgiving? For him, the extended family, once a tight-knit unit, fractured. Sides were drawn, those who chose to believe me, horrified by the decades of complicity, and those who tried to dismiss it, to defend the indefensible. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The silence of their complicity was now shattered, and the consequences were just beginning. My uncle's company launched an immediate internal investigation. Within 48 hours, he was placed on indefinite administrative leave, pending a review of his moral conduct and suitability for leadership. His comfortable life, his reputation, his financial security, all hanging by a thread. My mother, my sister, and my brother, they woke up to a different world, a world where their perfect family image was in tatters, a world where their names were whispered with pity or worse, with accusation. The phone calls stopped, the invitations vanished. Their once vibrant social calendar became chillingly empty. My sister's boyfriend, who had witnessed her call me a monstrosity, ended their relationship. He simply couldn't be associated with that kind of moral vacuum. My mother's boyfriend, realizing the storm of scandal engulfing her, began to distance himself. Their carefully curated second Thanksgiving had cost them everything, but the true twist, the real sting of poetic justice, my family never knew it was me, they suspected. They raged, they blamed each other, they even blamed the lying gossipers of Willow Creek. But they never traced it back to Alina Vance, the black sheep, the monstrosity, the victim they had abandoned. They thought I was weak. They thought I was broken. They thought I would just disappear into my guilt. But I had learned their game, and I had played it better. I watched from a quiet distance as their world imploded. I felt no guilt now, only a profound, chilling sense of calm. They wanted to sweep me under the rug. Well, by morning, their entire rug had been pulled out from under them, and I, Alina, was finally free.